Well, let's bring in Robert Kelly in Busan, South Korea now. He's a professor in the Department of Political Science and Diplomacy at Busan National University. Welcome back to the program, Professor. The Japanese
Thanks, Bob.
government has since said that the alert that it retracted was a genuine alert, implying that the threat was real. But what we're seeing now, a potentially new type of ballistic missile being tested by North Korea, isn't unusual. We've seen similar tests in recent months of Pyongyang trying out, or seemingly trying out, new weapons. What does this mean exactly? What are they trying to achieve?
Yeah, that's right. So the North Koreans have been doing a lot of tests in the last year to a year and a half. Your viewers may recall that there was a pause for a few years when Donald Trump was president, and you had a progressive in the South Korean presidency, and there was sort of this belief we might have a breakthrough, and there was a pause. And since that has sort of faded away, the North Korean tempo has really accelerated. And I think what that's telling us is that the North Koreans are really betting on missiles more than anything else, more than their conventional forces, more than any other platform they have. They're really putting all their eggs in one basket here on missiles, because in many ways the rest of the North Korean military is pretty clapped out. It's pretty outdated, even though it's very large, right? And so they need to keep on testing. I think some of this, as your reporter mentioned, some of this is just sort of normal North Korean testing. They got to make sure these things work. And they want to do more than just range the United States, right? The idea is to threaten a whole sort of host of countries in the area, so they have many different options for presumably nuclear strike, right? I presume these missiles are designed to carry nuclear weapons. And Japan would presumably be on the side of the Americans and the South Koreans in the case of war. So targeting Japan is probably part of the North Korean war plan.
Now, this latest launch comes just days after Kim Jongun called for strengthening the country's war deterrence in a, quote, more practical and offensive manner. Is that what we're seeing now?
Yeah, probably, although I think more specifically what he means is the development of small, low-yield nuclear weapons, weapons that are small enough to actually be used on the battlefield. North Korea is probably, I mean, we don't know, right? I mean, they don't tell us anything, but when we think the North Koreans have the big weapons they need to directly deter the United States by destroying, American cities or something like that, they probably have the ability to do the same thing to Japan, although, again, they want to sort of develop more and more ranges, right? At least that's what they're hinting at. But I think what they're looking at in the future now is going from sort of the big kinds of weapons the Americans and the Soviets built during the Cold War to building smaller ones that are a little bit more versatile that they could use in an actual conventional combat, right? The idea is that they would be losing the war, and so they would step up and start using small nuclear weapons to tilt the odds in their favor.
We know North Korea has criticized a recent series of joint military exercises between the United States and South Korea. Is that another reason why we're seeing Pyongyang step up its weapons tests in recent months? Because it is unlikely, isn't it, that Seoul and Washington are going to scale back those exercises?
Yeah, so there's kind of a chicken and egg problem here with the exercises versus the tests, right? The North Koreans say, they're doing tests because of the exercises, and the Americans and South Koreans say the opposite, right? I mean, the two of them are kind of locked in a interaction spiral, sort of negative interaction spiral, if you will. The North Koreans did have an opportunity, like I said, for a few years there. The North Koreans weren't testing, and the Americans and South Koreans were not doing the big exercises. So for a while, there was sort of a breakthrough, but the U.S.-South Korea alliance requires interoperability. It requires that the two sides be able to sort of interact. And because Donald Trump put those exercises on hold for a while, there was an increasing demand, particularly on the South Korean side, to bring those back. We now have a conservative president in South Korea who really wanted to return those. The exercises are pretty big now. My guess is they'll probably be a little bit smaller in the future, because I think the perception is, as you said, that they've sparked this wave of North Korean missile tests, right? So again, it's this kind of chicken and egg, who is sort of responsible for what game, I suppose.
Okay, Professor Robert Kelly, great to get your analysis always. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.